Time for another video where I deconstruct a track I made in Ableton Live, and this time I used some inspiration, and the inspiration is a track from Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg from 1992 called Deep Cover, which was released for a soundtrack of a movie called Deep Cover. And this song features a bass line that is actually not a sample, but it's played by a bass player. And it's a very famous bass line. It's a very simple bass line, but it's very funky and cool, and it really works in the song. What I've done is I recreated this bass line in Ableton with a synthesizer and then built my own track around it. So I didn't want to recreate the entire track. I just used the bass line from Deep Cover, used a synthesizer to play it instead of an actual bass guitar. And then I created my own drums and my own other melodic elements around it. I did keep the same tempo, so it's 95 BPM, so it's a bit slower than most of the stuff I make. In this video, I'm going to show you how I recreated that bass line and what kind of other elements I added to the track. So let's get into Ableton, and I first play you the original.
So what you saying?
I thank you, 5-0.
5-0. Man, I ain't no motherfucking cop.
Well, hit this motherfucker then.
I can feel it.
So as you can hear, this bass line is really cool. It's a very simple bass line, but it's very effective. So let me explain how I recreated this bass line. The bass line is actually an F, a B, an F, and another B, but then an octave higher than the first B. And it's a 1-bar loop. For the sound of the bass, I used a simpler preset called B bass, which sounds like this. So it's a very simple bass sound, not a lot of overtones, a little bit. And then when I put it in Ableton, it sounds like this. The other thing I did to it is, as you can see, if you look at the notes, they start a little bit later than exactly on the grid, to get a bit of dragging sort of behind the beat feel. And I also changed the velocity of the second and the fourth note. Especially for the long note, I wanted to fade out. So what I did is that I drew in some automation. So I used the utility device, and the gain is going down from 0 to -5 on each long note. So every bar basically. And that's basically the entire bass line, and that's the basis for this track. So once I had this, it was time to add some drums. And for that, I first started with the kick. So the drums are actually also a 1-bar pattern only. So for the kick, I used this sound. It has a little bit of a hat on it as well. It's from the standard Ableton library of drum sounds. And then I followed the bass line. So there's a double kick, and the second one is a bit lower in volume, -4, and then one more. And then for the snare, I use this sound, this snare drum. Very basic. So with the kick and the snare and the bass, it sounds like this. For the second part of the bar, I only wanted one kick drum because it's a long bass note. So only with one kick, you kind of give this feeling of that it takes longer to get to the snare. Then on top of this, I created some hi-hats. I used 2 different hi-hats, and it sounds like this. And this is a 2-bar pattern, and I changed a lot the velocities of the snare drums to create more of a feel. So together with the rest, it sounds like this. And this is really the basic part of this track, but of course it's not enough, because now it's only a kick, snare, hi-hat and a bass line. So from here on, I started to build it out, and I did that by first adding here on track 11 some kind of noise sample from my library of sounds from samples that I downloaded from Music Radar. So this is a percussive hit, kind of a noise with a delay on it. So if I just play that layer by itself. So just some white noise basically. And at the end of the second bar, I added another kind of noise sample that's not very clear what it is. There's some kind of voice in the end as well, but it's not really clear what it is. And then this kind of synth sound effect as well. It's kind of laser beep sound. So with all those effects together, so this is the first part of the beat. I created it into a 4-bar pattern. Then a little bridge where I basically took out the kick and the snare and just have the bass and the kick and the hi-hats. And some double snares. And then in the second part it gets more interesting. So I wanted to create something that's more like a melodic element. So here on number 7, track number 7, I have used the Numa player plugin that I've used before, and I used the Whirly 200 electric piano, and it basically follows the bass. So it's playing these chords in C. The bass was F, B, F, B. So here I just created triads in C that follows the bass, with a little bit of a pedal overdrive and an auto pan. So if I also play the bass, and I also added a muted guitar. This is a preset in Ableton as well. It's from the instrument rack section, guitar, electric, muted. And again, this is following the bass as well. So FB, FB. And then with some delay. So without the delay, it's very short. And then the delay with filtering of the output. And then together. So this emphasizes the bass again. And then we're almost there. The only thing left is for the last part, the third part, is a sampled instrument that I've created myself called Infinite Pad. I created this a long time ago, so I'm not sure what it is based on, but I can play you how it sounds. So it's really like a pad, and I just play a B and an F over 4 bars. And this sound is very much in the background. It's at -12 volume-wise, so it's really there in the background to add like another layer, very subtle, to the entire composition. And that's basically the entire track. The only thing that I added later as well is a crash in the part that is most dense. And then in the bridge there's a little vocal sample from Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die, which I pitched up by 1 and put a delay on as well.
Yeah.
There's a small yeah. And then in terms of arrangement, in the intro you just hear the bass by itself and then this kind of sample with some filter automation. And then with the filter automation actually sounds like a gong sound almost, because of the resonance of the filter. And that's the entire track, or the part of the track that I have so far. Of course, it is not a finished track, but there's an intro, sort of a verse section, a bridge, another part, number 2 here, and then the third part is kind of the chorus. It's the part with the most layers and the most density. So I have to further build this out, but this was just to show that by recreating a bass line from a song, you can use it as a starting point to create your own version of the song. Before we end this video, let me play this section from start to finish. Alright, that was it for this video. Let me know in the comments what do you think about this recreation of the bass line and the rest of the track. Should I continue developing it further, or is it nice as an exercise but doesn't have any potential? Let me know in the comments. As always, keep making music. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.